After World War II, America had a choice: punish Nazi scientists or use them. The war had ended. The camps had been liberated. The world had seen what Hitler's regime had done. But hidden inside the wreckage of Nazi Germany was something the Allies wanted badly. Rocket scientists, weapons engineers, aviation experts, doctors, technicians, men who had helped build the machinery of war. And as the Cold War began, one question became dangerously simple. What if the enemy's knowledge was too useful to throw away? So how did men from Hitler's war machine end up helping build America's rockets? And how did a secret recruitment program turn Nazi science into American power? The program became known as Operation Paperclip. But to understand why it still feels so uncomfortable, you have to go back to the final months of World War II. Germany was collapsing. Allied armies were pushing in from the west. The Soviet Union was advancing from the east. Nazi cities were burning. Files were being destroyed. Officials were running. Scientists were trying to decide who would capture them first. And among the most valuable prizes were the men behind Germany's rocket program. The Nazis had created the V-2 rocket, a weapon unlike anything used before. It was fast, terrifying, and almost impossible to stop once launched. It struck cities like London and Antwerp, killing civilians from the sky before people even heard it coming. But the rocket had another dark history. It was not only a technical achievement, it was also tied to forced labor. At Mittelbau-Dora, prisoners were forced to work in brutal underground conditions connected to V-2 production. Thousands suffered and died in the system around the rockets. So when the war ended, the V-2 was not just a symbol of advanced engineering, it was a symbol of what that engineering had cost. At first, the answer seemed obvious. The men who helped build Nazi weapons should be investigated. Their records should be examined. Their links to the regime should matter. The world had just fought a war against Nazism. Justice should come before usefulness. But that was only the surface, because by 1945, America was no longer thinking only about the war that had ended. It was thinking about the war that might come next. The Soviet Union was no longer just an ally against Hitler. It was becoming a rival. Both sides knew that the next great race would not only be fought with soldiers. It would be fought with science, rockets, jets, missiles, chemical research, aviation medicine, nuclear strategy, space. The question was no longer simply, who committed what during the war? The question became, who gets the scientists first? And that is where the moral line began to move. The United States began bringing German scientists, engineers, and technicians into American hands. At first, many were questioned, screened, and held under military control. Then the effort grew into a larger recruitment program. Under Paperclip and similar programs, more than 1,500 German and foreign specialists were brought to the United States. Some were brilliant engineers. Some were ordinary technicians. Some had worked on weapons. Some had been members of Nazi organizations. Some had pasts that did not fit neatly into America's new story about freedom and democracy. For a moment, it seemed like the United States could have both things, the scientists and a clean conscience. But it wasn't that simple, because the value of these men came from the same system that made their pasts disturbing. Their knowledge had been sharpened inside a dictatorship. Their rockets had been built for Hitler's war. Their factories had used forced labor. Their work had helped a regime that brought Europe to catastrophe. And now, after the war, their skills were being repackaged for a new country and a new enemy. This is where Operation Paperclip becomes more than a Cold War story. It becomes a question about what nations are willing to forgive when fear enters the room. One name stands above all the others: Wernher von Braun. During the war, von Braun was one of the leading figures in Nazi Germany's rocket program. He worked at Peenemünde, where German rocketry advanced rapidly under military control. The V-2 rocket became one of the most famous weapons of the late war. After Germany's defeat, von Braun and members of his rocket team ended up in American hands. And then the story changed. The same man connected to Hitler's rocket program later became one of the most important figures in the American space program. In the United States, he worked on military rockets, helped shape America's early space ambitions, and later became central to NASA's work at the Marshall Space Flight Center. His most famous achievement came through the Saturn V, the giant rocket that helped send Apollo astronauts to the moon. That is the part of the story that still feels unreal. A man who had worked in Nazi Germany's rocket program became a celebrated symbol of American space success. And for many people, that creates a problem history still has not fully escaped. Because Saturn V was real, the moon landing was real, the engineering achievement was real, but so was the V2, so was forced labor, so was the Nazi system that gave those scientists power, money, laboratories, and military purpose. This is not a simple story of heroes and villains. It is darker than that. It is the story of how victory can become compromise. By the late 1940s and 1950s, many paperclip scientists had new homes, new jobs, and new identities inside the American system. They worked at military bases, laboratories, research centers, and later in space-related programs. In public, they were often presented as technical experts, men of science, men of progress, men helping America win the future. But behind that image were questions that never went away. How much did American officials know about their Nazi connections? How much was ignored? How much was softened? How many records were treated as obstacles instead of warnings? The official argument was simple. If America did not take them, the Soviets would, and that fear was not imaginary. The Soviet Union also captured and used German expertise. The race for Nazi science was real. Both sides understood that the defeated Third Reich had left behind military technology that could shape the next era. But fear does not erase the moral question. It sharpens it, because when a country says, "We had to do it," the next question is, what exactly did it choose to overlook? The people who suffered under the Nazi war machine did not disappear when the war ended. The prisoners at camps connected to weapons production were not just background details. They were human beings trapped inside a system where technology and cruelty worked together. The civilians killed by V2 rockets were not statistics in an engineering timeline. The victims of forced labor were not footnotes beneath a launchpad. They were the cost that later success tried not to look at too closely. And that is why Operation Paperclip still feels like a shadow behind the bright images of rockets rising into the sky. Because the story of American rocketry is not only about courage, ambition, and exploration. Part of it also runs through Nazi Germany, through underground factories, through secret files, through decisions made after the war, when justice and national security collided. But the darkest part was not simply that America used German scientists. The darkest part was that usefulness could change how a past was treated. A scientist with the wrong history could become an asset. A dangerous resume could become a classified problem. A connection to the Nazi war machine could become something managed, minimized, or buried. The war ended, but the competition did not. And once the Cold War began, America's leaders saw the world through a new fear. Soviet missiles, Soviet science, Soviet power, Soviet influence. In that world, moral purity became harder to defend inside government offices. Men who might once have been seen mainly as compromised became valuable because they knew things the United States wanted. Here is what is confirmed. Operation Paperclip and related programs brought more than 1,500 German and other foreign scientists, engineers and technicians to the United States after World War II. Some were connected to Nazi military research. Wernher von Braun had been part of Germany's wartime rocket program and later became a key figure in the American space program. NASA credits him as a major rocket developer and identifies his leadership role in the Saturn V booster that helped make Apollo possible. It is also confirmed that V2 production was connected to forced labor at Mittelbau-Dora, where prisoners suffered in brutal conditions. What remains difficult is not whether these things happened. They did. The difficult part is how they are remembered together. Because history often wants clean chapters. Nazi Germany ends, America wins, NASA rises, the rocket reaches the moon. But Operation Paperclip makes the chapter break messy. It shows that the same expertise used for one regime's weapons could later be used for another country's dreams. It shows that scientific progress can carry a past no launch ceremony can erase. It shows that after a war, victory does not always mean justice comes first. Some paperclip scientists lived successful American lives. Some received honors. Some were remembered mainly for their contribution to science, rocketry, medicine, aviation, or space. Others became more controversial as documents surfaced and historians re-examined what had been hidden or minimized. And that is why the story still matters. Because Operation Paperclip was not only about moving scientists from one country to another, it was about deciding what kind of past could be forgiven if the future seemed important enough. It was about turning defeated enemies into assets. It was about choosing knowledge before accountability. It was about a country that had just helped defeat Nazism, then quietly decided that some men from that system were too useful to lose. The rockets rose. The photographs looked heroic. The speeches were about progress. The moon landing became one of humanity's greatest achievements. But behind that triumph was a harder truth. Some of the knowledge that helped shape the space age came through people whose earlier work belonged to one of history's darkest regimes. Operation Paperclip is remembered not only because Nazi scientists came to America, it is remembered because their arrival forced a question that still has no comfortable answer. When the future is at stake, how much of the past are powerful nations willing to ignore? The war ended, the scientists became useful. The files moved into archives. The rockets climbed into the sky, but the moral question stayed on the ground. Do you think America made a necessary Cold War decision, or did Operation Paperclip prove that justice can be traded for power? Leave your thoughts below. And if you want more true stories history almost buried, the next one is waiting.